BBC Radio London, it's 7 minutes past 8.
Vanessa Feltz.
London's breakfast show on London's radio station.
Weekday mornings from 7.
BBC Radio London.
Lovely listener, good morning and welcome to BBC Radio London's breakfast show with me, Vanessa Feltz. You awake on Wednesday, the 9th of November, to the news that Donald Trump is President-elect of the United States of America. He will become the 45th President of the USA. Hillary Clinton has called her Republican opponent to concede defeat. He has been addressing supporters at a rally in New York, where he vowed to be a president for all Americans.
It's going to be a beautiful thing. Every single American will have the opportunity to realize his or her fullest potential. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer.
Let us go straight to Matthew Barzan, the current US ambassador to the United Kingdom. Matthew, good morning, and thank you for talking to us on the programme. How would you describe the state of emotion at the embassy in London today?
Well, good morning, Vanessa. Thanks for having me on. It doesn't feel much like morning because it's been a long night. We had a great group last night of Democrats abroad, Republicans abroad, lots of British friends and American expats all gathered together to witness our democracy at work.
Yes, that's not necessarily an answer to the question, how is the general mood and what is the tone? Our reporter Jason Rosen was...
I'm now back at my place, so the party, disbanded a few hours ago. It wasn't conclusive by the time everyone left and got about their day. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the President-elect and the Vice President-elect.
I mean, you must be feeling a personal disappointment. After all, you're a Democrat appointment. You must be feeling also, I'm imagining, the same kind of shock and surprise that seems to be emanating around the globe. Certainly the polls did not predict this.
Well, Vanessa, you're right. I mean, it's hard for me because I obviously have my own personal politics. And at the same time, we have this great tradition that all around the world, our ambassadors aren't Democrat ambassadors or Republican ambassadors. So I can't get into the party specifics of it. So I'm focused really on serving out the remainder of my time for President Obama, and we have this wonderful tradition, Democrats handing over to Republicans and vice versa. We take much longer to do it than you all do in the United Kingdom, and that ensures in our system a steady and deliberate sort of handing of the baton for each of these key bits of government.
I'm assuming, just like the rest of us, Matthew, you were listening avidly and with great attention to the words uttered by President-elect Trump just now. And I'm sure you'll agree, he made a most stirring speech about inclusivity, about being a president for all Americans, and also this tremendously kind of inspirational view about, tapping into the creativity, unleashing the potential of every single American. And also he addressed the forgotten Americans. You'll be forgotten no longer, he said. It's going to be a beautiful thing. I mean, certainly his words are highly moving, aren't they? Evocative and moving. I mean, do you think that that's why he's president-elect, because he tapped into feelings and thoughts and sentiments that somehow the Democrats didn't get it, didn't seem to understand, didn't pierce?
Well, look, without getting into party politics, I think that what he expressed are very similar sentiments to what President Obama outlined last night. Right as the polls closed, he released a video. I don't know if you saw that, but those wonderful themes that President Obama and President-elect both echoed are American things. They're not Democrat things or Republican things. They are about American diversity and our story of inclusion through Republican administrations, Democratic institutions, and I think both the current leader and the future leader calling upon Americans to dig deep and act that way, not just on Election Day and the day after, but every day after that.
I mean, it does seem, I think, to many observers that now he is poised to assume, the highest office in the land and arguably in the world. Donald Trump is suddenly remembering dignity and restraint and maybe even wisdom, because it's been a pretty vile and uninspiring, unedifying campaign, hasn't it, that he's fought. And suddenly, thanking Hillary Clinton fulsomely and remembering the forgotten American and all that stuff. I mean, it probably, do you think it signifies a wake-up call for him? Now he's actually the man in post. He's got to behave in a different way?
Well, look, I think it's a tradition. I'm sure you and your listeners remember the 2000 election, how bitter that one was, and it dragged on for 6 weeks and went to our Supreme Court to a 5-4 decision. Doesn't get any more dramatic than that, and the country came together after that. So I think there is a great tradition, whether it's Democrat to Republican, Republican to Democrat, of doing just the sorts of things that we're talking about.
I mean, one of the things that's been worrying my commentators all morning has been the fact that obviously the Republicans hold sway in Congress as well, and that therefore what America and then, of course, the rest of the world are going to be faced with is one-party politics. In other words, I don't need to explain this to you, of course, but, there'll be very few constraints or restraints on Donald Trump.
Well, look, I don't want to get into speculating about what the agenda is going to be. That's not appropriate in my role. I think one interesting point that came up in his speech that he just delivered was this focus on infrastructure, which used to be a real bipartisan issue, Democrats and Republicans wanting to invest in and rebuild man-made America, and roads and bridges and all that kind of things, and airports. And he called that out, and that's certainly an area where Democrats and Republicans haven't been able to agree recently, and maybe that's something we'll see more of.
We've been hearing a great deal of the phrase today, this is America's Brexit. I mean, you're right here at the coalface of the Brexit here in London, so you obviously have some kind of understanding, maybe better than we do, about what Brexit really means. But can you understand the analogy? Is this America's Brexit vote?
Well, there's certainly, people on both sides of the Atlantic have made that link in their public statements. It's importantly different. One was a referendum, one was a presidential election, so I think you can go overboard drawing conclusions. But I guess in both senses, the polls underreported what ended up happening, so that's certainly one link. But I think the underlying issue of everyone in both of our democracies wanting to feel included and connected, that's a theme. And, by the way, I'll talk about my country, less about Brexit. Really big numbers on both sides. This was really close.
You many of the questions I've asked you this morning, Ambassador, you've said, well, I can't really answer that because I can't really talk party politics. No, I can't really comment on that. I don't really want to speak about that. What do you want to speak about? Here you are on BBC Radio London telling me you can't speak about this and can't answer about that. What would you like to say?
The whole thing hasn't been what I can't say.
Well, you've said a lot of things that you can't say. What do you want to say?
I'll tell you what I do want to say.
Good.
Is that I took an oath when I took this job that I would do everything I would to support the U.S. Constitution. And it couldn't be more clear in our Constitution that we may not, and therefore we do not, discriminate on the basis of religion. That's not a party politic statement. That is what our Constitution says, and I think that's worth emphasizing.
Do you mean that you don't think there will be a barrier to Muslims visiting the United States or a boundary put up between the United States and Mexico?
Just what I said, which is we may not and we do not discriminate on the basis of religion. And I think that's a really important constitutional issue that we go back. Republican and Democrat administrations have adhered to that. It's a proud part of our history, and I think that's worth emphasizing.
Thank you very much for talking to us, Matthew Barzin, there, the US Ambassador to the United Kingdom. We